All right, we're here. Welcome, everybody. You have myself, Joseph Kim, and Matej Lancaric, and we are going to be talking about the five biggest mobile game launches of the past year. There's a lot of talk about IDFA deprecation, mobile gaming's dead, everything's over.
Everything's dead.
Can't be successful, and yet we've got 5 games that we're going to look at: Honkai Star Rail, Survivor.io, Monopoly Go, Marvel Snap, and Frozen City. So these are the 5 games that we have looked at and believe to be the 5 biggest launches over the past year. Before we dive in, I know we're going to be broadcasting this to both of our audiences, Gamemakers and to 2.5 Gamers. But for the Gamemakers audience who doesn't know who you are, Matej, and why you are the best person in the world to speak about mobile game launches and UA, maybe take a minute about who you are.
Okay, let's take a minute. So I've been in the industry 10 years, working with different companies, UA consultant, soft launch and global launch around 35 games in the past year, spending around like 40 million-ish profitably. And I'm the host of the No Bullshit Gaming podcast, 2.5 Gamers. Great to be here. Now you should introduce to the audience of 2.5 Gamers.
Yes.
We had you on.
Yes, so if anyone saw the 2.5 Gamers episode with me, if you haven't, go check it out. But I'm basically mainly known for being the handsomest executive in the games industry. But besides that, we don't need to talk about that. Besides that, I am the CEO of a FPS gaming studio, mobile first, based out of India, Leela Games, and do stuff on Gamemakers, create some content that I think is interesting, that is important, critical information to give you that alpha, that edge, and why we are going to be, or how you can be successful in the market. So now we are going to look at these 5 big game launches, and we've got some numbers. Should we? Well, maybe we can go over the numbers and dive into these in detail.
Okay, let's start with Honkai, or you want to go through the?
Maybe what I could do is I'll go over the numbers and then maybe splice in post. I can kind of show some of the stuff. But first game. Honkai Star Rail, publisher is HoYoverse, formerly known as MiHoYo, although I think the way to pronounce it, everyone pronounces it differently, and the Chinese pronounce it differently. Okay. This was launched April 26th of this year. So far, cumulative downloads, 54.6 million downloads. It's done about 180 million in cumulative net revenue. This is net. And so, in my opinion, this is, we'll talk about it more depth, but this has been like a huge winner, huge game, massive, kind of success.
Massive success. But if you have 4,000 employees, there's no other way. There's no other way. It just has to be a success.
And we'll talk about this. The other game that I'm surprised about, Survivor.io.
Really?
Happy, August 11th, 2022. So it launched a little bit earlier, towards the end of last year.
It was a huge launch last year, huge launch. So you might know Hobby from Archero.
Yep.
And this is another game. They actually launched, I think, like 2 other games last year.
Right.
But this was definitely like the biggest success. They launched recently Snaker, but not even close to the success of Survivor.io.
So close to 69 million cumulative downloads right now, and about 268 million in cumulative net revenue.
Which is IIP only, and there is definitely an additional revenue on ads.
Yes, so this is making a shit ton of money. It's raining dollars for Survivor.io, so like good for those guys.
It's really a great game as well, and like a huge success.
Next is Monopoly Go by Scopely, launched April 12th of this year. Not
a long time ago. Not a long time ago.
not in a long time ago. Cumulative downloads so far about 22.5 million, and cumulative revenue about 28 million in net revenue. This is all from data.ai data. I think we've also looked at some of the Sensor Tower data.
Yeah.
Some discrepancies.
Yeah, there are some differences.
Sometimes small, sometimes big, but we can talk about that as well. Next, Marvel Snap. published by Newverse. And coincidentally, I just came from speaking to the Newverse guys. So out of the TikTok office in Culver City. So literally
Nice.
just came from meeting those guys. Can provide a few additional insights.
Nice.
October 18th, 2022 launch. So late last year, 17.2 million cumulative downloads and about 79 million in cumulative revenue. So okay.
No ads there. No ads there.
No ad revenue is what Matej means.
Yeah.
And finally, Frozen City. Now, I played all of these games. I gotta say, the game that I am impressed by, and this is not just because, by the way, there is a Fun Plus angle, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Century kind of spun out of Fun Plus. There's some relationships there. There's some shared people there, but I was actually quite impressed playing this game. We'll talk about it. December 26th of last year launch. So odd timing. I mean,
interesting time.
Yeah, maybe you can, like when we get there, I think you should speak about like, December launch.
December,
and that timing. About 17, 18 million downloads and cumulative downloads so far, and about 26 million in cumulative revenue. And similarly, you
there are
think
some
there's ads, right?
A significant amount of money on ads as well. It's working quite well. And I mean, there are some estimations that Felix done when we talked about the game before. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like 30-40% on top of what we see. It's additional revenue and ad revenue.
Wow.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad.
Okay. So maybe we can dive in, starting with Honkai Star Rail. Now, maybe before we dive in, we can provide a little bit of context in terms of MiHoYo as well. So in my opinion, this is a company with a very differentiated strategy, right? Mm-hmm. So these guys are big ballers. They're like,
definitely.
They are coming in hard and strong, and they have a significant moat because, for example, when we think about Genshin Impact, they spent $100 million in development reportedly.
Okay.
And they're spending $200 million in live ops a year. So, like when you think about the kinds of studios that can compete against this strategy of super high production value, right? So you got massive production value, and then you're launching a game with a free-to-play model. It's a very different model from anyone else that I'm seeing. And the word on the street, and I'm one of the few people who actually hears from China.
Oh, nice.
With my Chinese connections. Yeah. Okay. But reportedly, kind of like the strategy behind HoYoverse is actually to try to become like the Nintendo of free-to-play mobile.
Interesting.
So basically, like you can just go down the line of all of the games, like, of course, Zelda, Genshin, but like, other games. So you can expect the future game strategy of HoYoverse to be, we're going to look at the most successful titles on Nintendo, on Switch, and then we're going to try to create a free-to-play mobile cross-platform version of that. And by the way, we have our massive Chinese team that works 996, and we have the massive budget. Try to mess with us. Just try to follow us. We're going to fuck you up. That's kind of the strategy.
That's not going to happen. No, honestly, if you have that amount of employees, it's just like, it's hard to compete.
Right.
And the quality bar for Genshin and Honkai is just like, it's amazing. So right now, when we look at HoYoverse, 2 top worldwide grossing games, right? Genshin and this, and behind these 2 games, they are now one of the top 5 publishers in the world. And just looking at, let's see, just checking their stats here, we can see, so downloads have actually dropped off quite a lot. I mean, of course. Well, on a relative basis for them, but still we're looking at like 100,000. 100, 120 a day, which is for any other company, that's huge. That's pretty huge. But the amount of revenues they're making on a daily basis. Revenue is kind of holding. We're seeing some spikes. What the hell was this? I'm pretty sure there was a live ops event or anything. Well, I think Jakub mentioned there was like a new character introduced in the game. Okay. And it's like that was probably what happened around mid-May. Yeah, or mid-May. That really drove the revenue. I think that I didn't check RPD here, but I assumed that
if we're talking about a game
Out of the roof.
it's probably going up into the right. Was there anything you saw from like a marketing perspective that you think that they did differently, or what was your take on how they launched?
How they launched, I was expecting. I wasn't expecting that. Honestly, like, they would spend anything, because it's just big game. They have Genshin, but they're actually spending. I have no idea how much money, but I would expect a lot.
Sure.
But then they have, China is top one market, right? Then there's Japan, and then there is US on the third spot. And there are the usual suspects, which is the Google and Facebooks and all of the fun stuff. Then they have the Moloko, which is, that's like a hot shit nowadays in the UA space. I have no idea like what they are doing, but apparently, and I see it on my side as well. Like that UA channel and then DSP is working super well on different games. So you're actually buying from different ad networks anyway.
Right. So for our audience, and especially mine, they're not as tuned into UA. So when you say a DSP, can you explain to the audience what you mean by that?
Let's call it a programmatic buying, and let's simplify things. So they have an inventory of different ad networks. Like here we can see they're buying from Unity, AdColony, Vangle, Uplavin, and others, but they have their own mechanism and algorithms for bidding. So, and then you can just deploy a lot of budgets into
it's amazing how little Facebook is now.
It's very little. I know, right? So it's very, very little. And if we had this conversation like 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, Facebook would be top one, then Google, and then everything else.
Apple, you got your way. You accomplished, mission accomplished.
Exactly.
You guys destroyed Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's on Android, it's just so competitive on Facebook. It just doesn't work that much. On iOS, it's slightly different story, but still, you have all the other networks. But if you are, spending 200 million on live ops, then you need to spend across all of the channels, basically. Right. And now we actually talked about the Nightcross that you mentioned with Jakub.
Okay.
And even like they had this like offline marketing in South Korea quite heavily. So I'm pretty sure like these guys have their own ways of how to market their game in these areas. But honestly, they still, the country distribution is, like I said, like US, then Japan, Korea. And we don't see the China in these tools that much. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure like that's like huge. Huge. And they're creatives, and we can show it some things in the post-production as well. It's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. In other games, like a lot of other strategies on the creative side, like fake ads, misleading ads, these guys they don't need to do it at all. They just use all the nice characters, the gameplay. It feels so beautiful.
Right, and maybe for our audience, the other important thing to note is that a lot of the data services, whether it's Data.ai or Sensor Tower, will not track like the alternative app stores in China. And for a game, like some of these top Chinese games are not only dominating like some of the charts, but they're also not counting the revenue from the alternative app stores. So the money is huge.
We don't have the PC revenue as well, right?
Right.
And I'm pretty sure like this is like also like super huge.
Right. So long story short, it's good to be Hoyoverse.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's good to have 4,000 employees. If you can afford that, then of course, like you can dominate the whole world basically.
Yeah.
And now, like you see on the revenue, as soon as I can't imagine if they can spend more money on the live ops, but I'm pretty sure they will eventually, and that should just go up.
Right.
And with this type of monetization, the UA is like basically easy. But with this type of budget, I guess it's just like almost the shotgun approach. Like you would just be everywhere, like Mobile Strike and Machine Zone back in the days. You just open up the fridge and then there's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Instead, like this is gonna be characters from I guess the whole Hoyoverse now.
Yeah,
it's nice.
So should we move on or anything?
Yeah,
else?
let's move on, because now like this feels like very out of the reach for like a lot of companies, but it's always good to talk about like the huge successes. Like it's good for like motivation.
Maybe the second game we should talk about. Let's see here. We probably Monopoly Go.
Monopoly
Okay,
Go.
the
There you
most controversial.
Yeah. Controversy everywhere.
is how well is Monopoly Go doing? Okay, so now
we can.
If we look at the numbers, by the numbers, it appears that Monopoly Go is doing really well. So if you look at, for example, the downloads, they have not dropped off.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah,
they're going, and the revenue is. You can see the early revenue stacking, and it's going up like this.
Yeah.
Now the question though is, okay, these guys are spending a lot.
Yes, that's the word on the street. Like they're spending quite a lot of money on the daily basis.
Right now, also the word on the street is that the internal people from Scopely are saying this is a great game. This game is monetizing like crazy. But okay, so here's my concern.
Okay,
my concern is like the amount and scale that it seems like they're spending. So like I can understand some people going hard during launch because you want to. And there's different philosophies, but one philosophy is you want to try and get launch velocity. You want to get a lot of people behind the game, especially during that kind of golden cohort phase. But they haven't done that and eased off and said, okay, let's see where these ARPUs are getting to. Let's see how this game scales. It seems like they're just
pushing,
pedal to the metal. We're going, guys. We're rolling. And it's like, okay, but so my concern is this, okay? So they were in soft launch for a while. So I assume they kind of understand what the shape of their ARPU curve looks like.
Okay.
But when you go hard, when you go much higher scale, and when you go to focus on a geo like the U.S. more specifically, like, will they be able to maintain that ARPU growth over time? You know, how well? Because here's what I know of Scopely. These guys are some aggressive marketers, right? They're aggressive growth guys, and they go a lot off of, basically, it's common to go off of like D3, D7 ROAS. I think they call D7 ROAS D7 recoup.
Okay.
But what often happens is you basically can sometimes like pick your budget, and you tell me, like, I'm not the expert, you're the expert, right? So sometimes you'll look at your D7 to lifetime, and you'll assume a ratio. And they may have done that based upon other geos, and based upon the initial D7s that they're seeing right now, you're assuming that continues to grow. And I think that they're being very aggressive. Also, you got to think about strategically with Savvy. Savvy wants to be a #1 publisher. Savvy wants to have, like, strategically they want to go. So I feel like you've got a company known for aggressive push in the past, who may not have been profitable in the past.
Nobody knows.
Word on the street.
Nobody knows.
Until COVID. And then you've got a buyer and an operator now through Savvy, who just wants to push with a shit ton of money and who don't really care about profitability. So I guess what I'm not so sure about is I think they're making a lot of assumptions on their D7 to lifetime, and they're pushing really hard. But this may not actually be super profitable. We don't know. I'm not saying.
We don't know.
I'm not saying.
But it looks like but it looks like it's not there yet.
They're losing money now.
Oh yeah.
100%. And they're assuming they're going to get paid back. But also, the other thing that they could be doing, and where this might make sense, is I don't know if you remember the old like Japanese strategy, especially when you had the old CCG gacha-based games like Rage of Bahamut back in those days. But they used to build their UA models not only off of a single game, but they would basically have a UA model against a portfolio.
Okay, so it's based on like all the games, and then you have like an LTV of the whole portfolio.
LTV of the user based upon, hey, we're going to get this user.
And then he will spend it across all games.
And for the Japanese had this model where it's like, okay, after a certain point in the lifetime of a player, they're going to push them to this other gotcha CCG game, and then another gotcha, and they may model 2 to 3 games out.
Okay.
So anyway, that's why I'm a little bit skeptical that you can't be comparing Monopoly Go apples to apples against other game launches.
No, most probably no.
And that the calling Monopoly Go a success right now, based upon what I know historically,
it's very early to say it's success. I mean, the game grows like crazy. That's true. The revenue grows like crazy. But also, if you spend a ton of money on a daily basis, which words on the streets, it's millions. Nobody knows. Nobody knows if that's true.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be very hard to actually recoup that money. And even if you are looking at like a year, maybe 2 years, like
it's like the old social casino guys were like anywhere from 18 to 24 months, right?
Yeah.
At one point in time.
And this category, even if you have the Monopoly IP, I mean, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Not
so
cheap
there's going to be a rev share here.
True. Yeah, of course.
Guessing 20%. Guessing.
Guessing. So you need to make like 20% more to actually be profitable at some point in the future with like really high CPIs in this category. And you have 300,000 daily installs. And there's like the top one is still like US, which makes me wonder, like that's a lot of money.
Right. Now, maybe the other game we could talk about or think about is like, it is very similar to Coin Master, right? So if it can get Coin Master ARPU, then I think it should be okay. It should do well. And then the question is that, so this is a question that, and I haven't played Monopoly Go long enough or well enough, and I don't know that genre well enough, but then I think if you're really interested in understanding how well Monopoly will fare over time, then it would be like, okay, what are the differences between a Coin Master versus a Monopoly Go? And does it have the ability to reach the kind of monetization characteristics of a Coin Master?
Well,
have you guys deconstructed this as part of 2.5?
We are planning to actually.
Okay, all right, So this is what you should be asking.
No, because we have talked about preparations for this, and then the comparison to Coin Master is actually what we talked about,
right? And
how we should think about it, because people compare it to Coin Master quite heavily, but I'm not so sure if it's anywhere close there. Of course, like there are similarities. There are different games like Dice Streams, and like there are different iterations. Jakub already talked about it in his LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
I guess it's fair, but in terms of the UA strategy now, like they're pushing so hard, I'm most probably sure that they will need to like slow down very, very soon, because it's not sustainable. I mean, the revenue grows, but it's going to peak very, very soon. I mean, I'm guessing like 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
2 weeks from now. And then we'll deconstruct like, okay, so now, like, this is time. Because, I mean, it's super aggressive, honestly.
Right.
I wasn't expecting this type of revenue growth and the 300K downloads per day. It's just like, since they launched, it's flat, like you said. And, even if you compare the ARPU curve from soft launch, it's different scale.
Yeah,
it's very different scale. So it's not like apples to apples. Like, I mean, the shape might be the same, but honestly, with this type of budget on a daily basis, it might not be even 2 years.
Right. And the other thing for our audience, just like, UA 101, and Matej's the expert, I'm not the expert, but one of the things, a concept for product managers, executives to understand is like, if you were to think of it, so I'll talk into this camera. So if you think about a two-dimensional graph where you have like volume on the x-axis and cost CPI on the y-axis, what happens is you push volume, is that you often get kind of an exponential curve. At some point, there's going to be a bend in terms of the graph at certain scales of volume. And so the question is, they have not operated at this scale before. They were sitting in soft for a while. So a lot of the assumptions that you make as you start to scale up start to break down. And that's the risk, is that, and that's also one of the reasons why some people will push the first 2 weeks and then ease off and say, okay, let's see where we're at. These guys are not ease off type of guys. They're like,
And
boom, we're going.
And also, you mentioned the golden cohort. Golden cohort is always better.
Yes.
In terms of like all the KPIs,
yes.
The lowest CPI, the highest LTV, which honestly by now that's over
right.
already.
And so sometimes what people will do is they'll take the golden cohort KPIs and extrapolate forward.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
like, it looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's push even more. And then after 3 months, you wake up like, oh shit.
Yeah, and when you've got like a 18 to 24 month payback period, that original guy who built that aggressive model,
he's already gone. Yeah, he's already gone from the company. He's like, oh well, you can blame this. No, honestly, like this is very risky. But again, like if you have a new buyer, the buyer of the company, and then you have shit ton of money.
And there's strategic reasons.
Yeah, and we don't have the full context, of course.
And even if they're not profitable, then somebody comes back and builds them all that. Oh yeah, we're always want to do the portfolio strategy, right? We're banking on getting these.
These Japanese companies, they did it as well. I heard it on the podcast before. Let's listen to this. But no, it's risky. Let's see what happens. But I'm not a very big fan of this type of like splash. Global launches anymore. I mean, of course, if you have the money, but you gradually spending and seeing like how the cohorts mature, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you can actually scale.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have talked about before is kind of this notion about moving from the previous zero interest rate market environment, age of access, into an age of efficiency. Now, if you're trying to buy efficiently, this is not the strategy.
This is not the strategy. Because people ask like, oh well, like they are doing so well. I was like, how do you know they're doing so well? But like, look, the revenue is increasing.
Yeah.
Yes, but do you know how much they spend? Oh well, we don't, but we assume like it's going well. Like, fine.
Yeah. So once you test for scale, once you see the longer term ARPU curve, then you can go back and say, we made the right decision. And again, I don't think either of us are saying they made the wrong decision.
No, of course, no.
But we're saying they're making a hella aggressive decision.
Yeah,
and there's some risk there.
And risk bets for the future, future revenues and profits in particular.
All right, the next big launch.
This is my favorite.
Survivor.io. Now, this is a game. I found it fun. I thought it was very interesting how you take this, replayable game mechanic. You're adding a lot of long-term progression to that game, which is clever. But can you speak to how do you think they're doing?
So they're doing quite well. I mean, Jakub could talk about this for years.
Okay.
He loves the like unfolding gameplay, all the fun game design stuff, like how you actually progress with the game, and then they are showcasing or unfolding new features for you, which monetize like hell. But now, so they made this like huge splash launch, and they were spending like crazy. There were also some like words on the street that they spent quite extensively on TikTok.
Okay.
In the first few weeks and months, and they used even like a different product, which was called it's still called like Top View. It's like almost like a branding campaign.
Yeah.
Of course, if you put that in place, TikTok kind of helps you to be on the first position like everywhere.
Okay.
So that worked quite well. And then there were these days like, look, so the revenue,
it's kind of holding steady with typical event spikes, things like that. And
they were just on 1 million a day revenue in 4 or 5 days since the global launch.
Wow.
And it's like a combination of in-apps and ads revenue, and it's like 50-50 almost split.
Right.
So everything we see here, which is, where is it? Here, which is now, you had it somewhere else. We had it here. So it's like 270 million. And then I think you can add another 200 million to that revenue on the ads revenue side.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's super, super good in terms of the implementation in the game. You just want to watch those ads. It's like 6 or 7 placements, and they're uncovering different other placements. Beautifully done.
Yeah, so don't sleep on Survivor.io, guys. Like, people are talking about certain games as being the best game out there, but it's like we got some strong launches here. I think, well, one, clearly there's Honkai, which is in one universe.
It's different.
And then there's everybody else.
Everybody else, there's everybody else, of course. But these guys from Hobby, they're like also pretty aggressive in terms of launching games and then monetization. They have this like metagame framework that they now apply to all of their games.
Yeah.
But this one, it's especially working well because of the whole like marketability and theme. It's just packed into this like almost like a hyper casual visual style,
right?
Which is also, we are going to talk about the Frozen City, which is very similar, but this is slightly different. They're using like these like hordes of different monsters everywhere. It's just super overwhelming in the creatives.
Yeah.
Now, almost all mid-core games using their creative strategy now. Fake ads, fake as shit, but taken from Survivor.io because they created something that works really well.
Right. And for our audience, just so you know, in terms of Hobby itself, this makes sense because if you think about where they came from, right? So they actually came from Cheetah.
Cheetah Mobile, yeah.
Yeah, so these guys were basically ad publishing, like hyper casual experts, worked for a while. The word on the street was they were actually already kind of working on the side on this.
That's how it works, man. That's how it works.
So they kind of knew they were going to be successful even before they left. That's word on the street, rumor, conjecture, speculation. But I think that helps you understand that this is the type of company, if we talk about strategy, understanding the marketability and the potential to get growth for a game, even before you make the game, that's where the expertise comes from. And by the way, no, not to take anything away from Archero or from Survivor.io, but what I'm saying is like they also have that in their DNA.
Yeah, 100%. And also like Archero was a big success, like genre defining basically. And now they did it again with Survivor, and like it's even like better and way better than Archero was ever, like in terms of downloads and revenues.
And can you speak on like in terms of their marketing mix or things that they've done? You mentioned TikTok. Was there anything else that kind of stood out to you?
There was really big splash on TikTok, mainly on iOS and Android, but mainly on iOS. Like now they're spending almost everything on iOS. It's like very big amount of budgets. And even if we look at like,
so they're spending on iOS despite
yes, exactly. So iOS is dead. They're still spending like crazy on iOS, and it's working quite well for them, apparently, based on the revenues. And honestly, the mix is just very easy to understand. It's TikTok, Google, Facebook, Uplavin. Uplavin, actually, when we discussed different game launches in the last 6 months, Uplavin was always like top 3. They're also doing something very interesting in terms of performance. It improved so heavily. But here, I think what's most important on iOS, they're doing different mixes in terms of geo. So you have the South Korea, Japan, and Asia, and then they have the US.
Yeah.
So they're also big not only in the US but also in Asian countries, which makes a lot of sense, and also like revenue. And we don't have the China the revenues as well. And they're developers from China, so they know their shit. They know what they're doing in that market. And in terms of
by the way, before you move on, like as far as the mix there, so you see whether the different ad networks and things like that, where do you see the mix? What are the top performing ad networks for a game like this?
For a game like this, it's Google way more than Facebook. I mean, like you said, Facebook is just minimum. You want to have it in the mix, but it's not the top spender. It's usually Google, TikTok, and I see Uplavin these days. So those are top 3. Right. If you have ad monetized game, it's definitely Uplavin because of the AdROAS campaign. So if you mediate with Max, their mediation platform, then you can run AdROAS campaigns, which is basically targeting whales, but on the ad revenue side. Then you have Google, which you can also run AdROAS campaigns, and Unity as well. You can also AdROAS campaigns. So in this, is I joked around. This game is just basically a UA manager's wet dream because you have in-apps and you have ads as well. And if it's 50-50, you can use so many options. In-app revenues, like value optimization, so target whales, and then AdROAS campaigns, and you can even use like app event optimized campaigns, like any engagement event. So
you got to use Max.
You don't need to use max.
Okay.
It's you just, if you have a healthy split on the ad side versus in-apps, you can use whatever mediation you have.
And it's no longer dangerous to use AppLovin.
Well,
they are trying to get rid of their games business, so I think they've learned their lesson.
Yeah.
I think so. And maybe, guys, you can dip your toes into the AppLovin waters again.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, it's been one of the best performing channels in the last 6 months. So it's.
Sure. I mean, they've always performed well. It was just the question was, were they?
I know. Yeah. It's a little bit shady, yeah, right. But no, this was one of the biggest launches for sure, for last year, and it's still making shit ton of money, honestly. So they shifted the strategy on the creative side from using only the gameplay oriented videos to actually something which is really interesting.
Right.
And they used it for Snake, and now they implemented it back to Survivor.io, which is using actually AI people in the UGC creative. So instead of using real humans, they use AI.
Wow.
I used it as well, and it's just outperforming really by far.
Okay.
And it's easy to produce. You can create 10 iterations out of nowhere in an hour.
Okay.
It's perfect. And it was so funny because I know those people are made by AI because I used it, but people, they don't know. I talked about it with the Aquaman Felix, right? And there's I wouldn't say. It's just so natural, perfect, really. Great, guys on the UA side and monetization side, chef's kiss. Really, seriously, heads off.
Nice.
Heads off.
All right, Marvel Snap.
Oh man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do we start on Marvel Snap? So, and by the way, I just saw these guys, so I don't want to say anything mean.
Yeah.
Because I like them.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's.
Well, you
let's
saw the Newverse guys, not the.
Yeah. No, not the secondary. Just to be clear, on the publishing side, but it's the publishing side where there's. Let's just be honest. Okay, so we're kind of insiders in the industry, so we hear a lot from a lot of different people. The game itself, obviously, is a good game. Is actually kind of interesting. So just the setup in terms of more information for our audience about Snap is that, so they were funded by NetEase. I think they raised $30 million to make.
Even more, I think it's 50.
Is it more? Okay, the initial funding was 30.
Okay, nice.
So I don't know if the other additional 20 came from non-NetEase or if it's all NetEase. Interestingly, you never have a situation like this where you have two different Chinese companies. One does the investment and one does the publishing. It's unusual.
Yeah.
So for ByteDance Newverse to come in and do the publishing is unusual. But I would say that the word on the street is actually how well. I mean, great for second dinner, And by the way, these are the ex-Blizzard Hearthstone guys, so they know the CCG category pretty well. But the word internally amongst a lot of people, and I can say this because people are tweeting about it and things like that, is that the game economically has not been great for Newverse. Now, great for second dinner. And so, on the one hand, it's okay, great. Newverse really will push the shit out of a game. Great, right? But then if we're talking about the 5 best launches over the past year, can we consider Marvel Snap to be one of the best launches? I would say
one of the biggest launches, let's say.
Sure, it's one of the biggest launches, but from an economics perspective, we would probably, just like I would kind of discount Monopoly Go right now, I'd probably discount Marvel Snap as a economically successful big launch for now. But I don't know, what do you think? What's your take?
Yeah, so thing is, Newverse is still spending a second dinner money. So they are actually operating that budget, and the launch was, when I was looking at the game at that time when they launched it, it felt like a playbook from 2013 or 14. Just huge amounts of installs from everywhere. Honestly, I saw Ben Broad on Facebook 10 times a day. If you think about it,
what are you doing on Facebook?
Okay, true. Twitter as well, by the way, Twitter as well, and Instagram as well, and then LinkedIn. So I said, that's my main social media.
Okay.
But I saw him multiple times a day. If you think about it, the frequency of that ad, it's just crazy high.
So they hired an old MZ guy, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
They must have hired an old MZ guy.
Most probably, yes. Yeah,
I remember what we did for Game of War back in 2013.
And that was, I think, like that wasn't like very efficient on the first place. So that's why I think like the economic didn't work that well. Because if you do this type of like big splash global launches, you can't do it like we think Monopoly Go does it. Because I think like they're pushing on in-app side or like app event optimized purchase campaigns, value optimized campaigns, just because the ARPU is like increasing like crazy.
Right.
In here, it was like most probably not that down the funnel. It was mainly like installs. And if you run these type of campaigns, you can't expect a lot of money back.
Yeah. And by the way, Marvel is expensive. Just so people know.
You mean in terms of IP and license?
On the IP licensing side. So you're talking about one of the most, economically. Well, now the Marvel guy. Well, fuck it. I mean, look, it's expensive. I'll put it that way.
It's expensive. Yeah.
Don't get mad at me, Marvel guys, but you're not showing me much love anyway. So.
Okay, but we mentioned that they made like 80 million based on the data AI since the global launch. Mm-hmm. So, words on the streets, they spend a lot of money during the first 2 weeks on the global launch, right. Which maybe in like tens of millions.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say just based upon like I haven't played a lot of Snap, but
I played a lot of Snap.
And we, there's people in our community that have played a lot, but clearly the monetization is light.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's very light. It's like no gacha. It's
although they tried gacha.
Yeah, there was a backlash. Yeah, there was a
backlash. Yeah, so.
But like Riddicker also had a different monetization. Then they put gacha in the game, and then suddenly instead of making 10 or 20K a day, they just started making 200 or 300,000 per day immediately. Yeah, and pissed off all community, but then
And when you say that they used the old 2013 playbook, so they did do some things like, Sam Jackson video, things like that.
But it was only like for like short period of time, and it was only live on TikTok. I mean, if you have this type of video, you just show it everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere. There is America Chavez in the videos, which is obviously like after Doctor Strange movie, everybody knows her, but. Yeah. She's not a very popular Marvel character. You have Hulk, you have Spider-Man, you have Iron Man, like Thor. Like, why don't you use that?
Right.
It's just crazy. Obviously, I was really wrong about using or like talking about using Ben Brody in the video, because I've heard that it's performing quite well because he's a very strong personnel in the person in the CCG community.
In the CCG community.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know, like, if you want to scale, nobody cares. That's what I said. Like, oh, well, nobody cares. Nobody cares. But in the CCG community, apparently this works quite well. And honestly, it's not a very big market, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to just double down on that, most probably you want to use Ben Brody in that.
I don't know. For scaling?
Most probably no. But if you want to capture like the whole niche, most probably yes.
I think this is a very interesting space just because historically it's been very concentrated, right? It was like Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh! On mobile anyway.
Yeah, and that's it.
And that's it. And even Riot with Legends of Runeterra, I mean...
Yeah.
I mean, that game's not doing well. That's my guess, is that it's not doing well.
Yeah, I think I was looking into it, and like Marvel Snap out of all these like mobile versions was doing quite okay.
Okay.
In terms of like revenue per download and like how the curve increased over time.
Okay.
But that's mobile. You have PC and others. And also like Hearthstone was on PC first and then they launched on mobile. So it's like not comparing apples to apples anyway.
Yeah.
But in terms of the UA and everything like during the global launch, why I think it was like a big splash, because it was just like, and then it decreased quite heavily after 3 weeks. And they was like, Facebook, Google, ad networks, and everything just was stopped and then came back to Google and Facebook. And you can't scale with 2 channels. I mean, if you look at the Monopoly Go or Survivor, like they're spending everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just, now they scaled back quite heavily.
Yeah, I think the way that I would probably think about the longer term success of Snap is, okay, now you've got one big investor plus developer plus separate, publisher
It's a lot of
relationship.
parties. It's a lot of parties.
And you got Marvel up in there as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got like clearly Second Dinner has already publicly stated that they're more jazzed about their next game, right?
Yeah.
So then, like, how much attention, effort, energy is going to continue to go into Snap is my question. And were they incentivized properly to push?
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This is all like, these are the questions though.
Yeah, honestly,
that people should think about.
If you have this type of scale of the game, there's still almost 600,000 DAUs, I think.
Okay.
Which is not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad. And they're making 500,000 based on the external tools on a daily basis, which is again pretty good. If you compare it to other games, like a lot of companies would like those numbers.
Sure.
Without the third parties and all, obviously. So, but I think it's still if they can improve on the monetization, which I think they've done quite recently, because I'm playing the game, they introduced some early special offers, and they increased the early monetization by a lot.
Okay.
So I guess they're pretty skillful, and this is still very much a big learning experience for them, how they can move the needle. And if they can move the needle here, I mean, they most probably can move the needle on the next game easily. But I guess there's gonna be a different selection process for publisher or whatever.
We'll see.
We'll see. So just pure speculation.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know.
All right. So our last game.
Yes.
Frozen City. I love this game. And you know what? Actually, the interesting thing is that I had a game design mainly driven by a friend of mine that was very similar to this. And I'm excited just because it worked, but the production value, what they did, kind of mixing city building with idle,
yeah.
I thought it was really cool. I'm really glad to see that this game is doing well. And I think you're going to see the ARPU curve on this thing just, I think, for me, the numbers, if we just look at the pure numbers, it doesn't, it compares okay.
Yeah, it's 26 million revenue and then 17 million downloads cumulative since the launch.
But I actually think longer term, this has got some legs. I think we're also going to see other games that try to mimic this, and maybe another
There's
game.
already few games in development.
Yeah.
Just take on the Frozen City.
Yeah, and I think another game that can potentially, or Frozen City, that iterates to being able to drive higher monetization, because you're mixing collection, you're mixing saga-based city building, and you've also got the heroes aspect and collection around the heroes. So
and they have also a battle element in there, so you can take your heroes or whatever and actually battle.
Right.
Which
So
is few games within one game, basically.
Yeah, and so those additional vectors of progression and potential areas for monetization.
Vectors and systems. Here we are. I thought, because Jakub is always talking about system and vectors.
This thing has great core.
No.
You got a lot to work with the game. So I actually am very, very positive on this game. I am a little bit biased, having previously worked at Fun Plus, and I actually think this is quite a strong launch. What do they do on the marketing side?
It's a very strong launch. I mean, they were very strong on the uploving side. I mean, look, so if you have idle game and you have ad monetization, the top one channel for it is just uploving. And it's going to work so well. And this is what worked well for them as well, where we have it here, Frozen City. I mean, even now they're still running. I mean, they're, again, pretty big on iOS. And what we need to mention is the 30 or 40% uplift on the ads revenue.
Yep.
So 26 million, then plus 13 additional, which is not bad. And they're actually quite big in US and also South Korea and some Asian markets as well, because I mean, they're from there as well. So I mean, you can see the pattern. As soon as you are from that type part of the world, what to do. But what stood out to me was the uploving, pretty big one, Google pretty big one, Unity pretty big one. And they used quite a lot of playable ads, which is great on ad networks. And also, why I think this works quite well is the visual style of the low poly, basically, which is very close to the hyper casual games. And low poly always, for me and the games that managed before, resulted in really low CPI in comparison to other themes and visual styles. So this is a combination of low CPI and idle, which is also pretty low in comparison, low CPI in comparison to other genres.
Yep.
And then if you double down on ad monetization and ad ROAS campaigns again, like that's all three buckets, which is like ticks all on the low CPI side. So that's why I think like this works quite well. And also what they did, the company Century Games, they took Frozen City and then they put it into the Whiteout Survival, which is basically a 4X game that they have. And they took the Frozen City onboarding, so it's all idle until the point where you actually play the game and then just got, I think, a level 7. Then it zooms out and you see the 4X map. It's just so smooth. It's amazing.
Okay.
It's perfect. So this was like, let's call it, I would say, again, pure speculation, very good test to see how it scales. And then it worked well in terms of the CPI and retention. That game has really strong retention. I think day one is like 60%. Day 7 around 30, which is not bad for idle games. It's actually, well, I mean, back in the days when Idle Miner Tycoon was launched, it was like rumored that it's like 70 to 80% day one. Now we don't know
how they actually ran the metrics for that, but that was I heard directly from the founders. But,
nice. So this, you never know. You never know. So this was like a nice experiment, like how to actually onboard players to the 4X, because we know like 4X is pretty expensive and it's really hard to get players. So like this is like a whole story from launching Frozen City to actually launching Whiteout Survival, like after like 2 months. The timing in terms of the December, it's just not.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
It's not fortunate, but again, you think about it. You have Golden Cohort.
Right.
It's 26th of December, so all the like e-commerce and all the shit which is pre-Christmas already like kind of fades off.
And when does the App Store freeze?
It was before Christmas for 2 weeks, but I'm not sure if that's
so they didn't even
the case anymore.
Yeah, okay.
And even if that freeze, like you have the release build and candidate
and
like
featuring doesn't matter anymore. So.
It doesn't. Yeah, oh man, it's zero. Like you have a bunch of downloads, but the revenue just stays flat. At least on Google and iOS, like maybe that does something. But so in terms of timing, it's not as bad. I've even launched the games in like 22nd or 20th of December. It's like, again, like the Golden Cohort, it's always there.
Okay.
And like if you power through the Golden Cohort until January, it's like actually like not bad timing.
Okay.
So you scale or start to grow the budgets from the end of December, and then it kind of grows, because January, February is pretty good. Those are pretty good months overall for UA. So yeah, good.
Okay, so maybe those are all the 5 games. Maybe what we could do to wrap up is, so in your opinion, how would you rank these 5 games in terms of what you believe are the, I don't know, best performing or best for you?
But I think we have to discount the Honkai because it's just
it's just number 1.
It's just number 1.
Number one.
It's
so
like
number 1's
number
taken.
1. Yeah, number 1.
So what's your 2 to 5?
So 2 is definitely Survivor.io.
That's what I would say.
That's like definitely. Well. And then I can't decide because it's very tricky in terms of the Monopoly Go. But I would say Frozen City, Marvel Snap, Monopoly Go, just because Monopoly Go is still pretty early, and I think like that's not profitable.
Okay. Yeah, I would. So we're similar. Obviously, Honkai for me, number 1. Number 2 would be Survivor.io. Number 3, I would say Frozen City.
Nice.
Then Monopoly Go. Then Snap.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because I would say like Monopoly Go because I wouldn't put them 5th because
I know.
We're still going to see what happens.
Yeah.
Or they will see what happens. We can only speculate. And then Snap, economics are kind of challenging, but I'm glad they were able to have a good push. And they're by the way, love Newverse.
Yeah.
Snap seems like an awesome game, and we definitely rooting for them.
Nice. Okay.
All right. I think that's it.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Thanks very much. Yeah, all good. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right.